Welcome back to the Overheard Podcast, recorded live in Banff. My name is Daniel Rudel. With me always my co-host,
Matty Rage. Let's go.
Let's go. If it's your first time joining us, please don't forget to give us a like and subscribe. We check the analytics every week. Tons of people just dropping in, not hitting the button. If that's you, do us a big favor. It helps us bring plenty more episodes, community-based, from Banff, Canmore, Bow Valley, maybe even dipping into some Lake Louise soon. Who knows?
Nice. Let's go.
Anyways, costs you nothing, helps us tremendously. Please don't be shy. Our guest today is Cheryl, joining us for the second time. Back again. I was going back through our episodes. You're episode 21.
It's like 100 episodes
100
ago.
episodes ago.
That's so crazy.
That's
You've aged. You've changed.
That was...
We've aged terribly. How's the day going so far?
It's going well. I'm a bit nervous, but we'll get over that.
you've been
We're
here
great.
before. You'll be here.
Yeah.
Don't be. You're a star. The camera loves you. Before we get too far into things, let's check in with our sponsors. As always, this episode is brought to you by Drink Shaft. When it's summer in the Bow Valley, early isn't optional. First light on the fairway, glassy water at the shoreline, that first hit of sun that tells you the day is yours. There's a difference between showing up and doing it right, and that's Drink Shaft. Cold, nitro-infused, non-alcoholic. There is an alcoholic one too if you're into that, maybe a little later in the day. It's the Bow Valley's #1 grab and go cold brew. So start early, do the day right with Drink Shaft. Especially if you're hitting the lake or by the river, easy grab on your way there. This episode is brought to you by Drink Shaft.
I had one of the alcoholic ones. I went and purchased one. I got to support the sponsor, so
Got it, dude.
I had to pick one up the other day. I was feeling a little sluggish,
Before one of your sets or what?
I had a DJ set, and I was just like basically asleep. I'm like, crush one of those. Good to go.
Good to go. So welcome back. If you don't know our guest, Cheryl, again, join us for the second time. Thank you so much. Cheryl's story is one of resilience, self-discovery, and learning to hold on to hope even in the darkest moments. Living here in the Bow Valley, she felt the pressure that can come with living in a place that's known for its beauty and peace. But behind that, she's navigating adjustment disorder alongside severe anxiety and depression, which makes even the smallest daily tasks like getting out of bed, taking a shower, or making a meal feel like an immense victory. Her journey has included periods of isolation and feeling misunderstood, but through it all, Cheryl has continued to advocate for herself. One of the biggest turning points came when she realized that mental health support isn't one size fits all. When something didn't work, she chose to keep going, and that persistence led her to the right care and strong support network that helped her begin to heal. Since then, Cheryl has taken meaningful steps toward reconnecting with her community, returning to volunteering, and redefining what healing looks like in her own terms. She speaks openly about letting go of guilt and shame, setting boundaries, and taking things one day at a time. As she puts it, this journey isn't linear. It's about meeting yourself with honesty and compassion. Today, Cheryl finds strength in the people around her and even in the small moments that remind her who she is. By sharing her story with Bow Valley Mental Health and Addictions Week, she hopes to help others feel less alone and understand that even though the path isn't clear, you are deserving of care, you are deserving of support, and the chance to find what works for you. Thanks again. Thanks again for coming in and joining us. Being open about these topics is not always the easiest thing.
It's not, but thanks for having me back on. I think it's an important week to talk about these things.
For sure. I'm very glad we can organize and get this in timely matter. We are right in the middle of Mental Health Week right now. It is running from the 3rd to the 8th?
The 3rd to the 8th.
3rd to the 8th. You got it. So for someone hearing about Mental Health and Addictions Week for the first time, what is it? Why does it exist?
Let me get my notes. No, it exists because it's a way to have a collective of events that bring the community together. So that's talking about mental health and addiction, and it's for everyone. So whether that's affecting you directly, whether it's affecting you indirectly, or maybe you just want to learn more about it, it's a great way to kind of get your foot in the door and find out some new things and meet some new people and see what resonates with you.
I think through my experience in these types of events or like healing places is just knowing that you're not the only one going through it, especially when you're talking about mental health, and especially I've dealt with addictions myself. It's a very isolating kind of, you tend to self-isolate, and just being around people, maybe even if you're not the one suffering, just knowing that there's support there of other people that are going through the same thing is huge. So get out to one of those events, definitely. What's the core idea behind this year specifically?
So this year, the event is really, representing our population. So we look at exactly what you're talking about in terms of isolation, but also, we live in a place where there's a lot of, I guess, challenges with work-life balance. And so a lot of people are dealing with many challenges, whether it's housing, whether it's cost of living, not having a tight support system with them. So really at its core, this programming this week is to just help with that and know that people aren't alone, that there are other people that are dealing with these same things. And, it's prevalent. The stress that we feel here, it happens all the time, and it's a beautiful place, but it exists.
100%. And a lot of the stresses that you mentioned often maybe not talked about as much as they should be, being housing, the world political state, or even the provincial political state for some, getting people really upset and angry in their day-to-day lives, whether that's by design or not. We're not here to talk about that, but the outcomes are real, right? Especially when people are taking in negative media. It's very easy to feed that negative monster and be negative all the time, but it really trickles down in all aspects of life. So if you find yourself in one of those positions, like I said, no better time to go check out an event. Why does this conversation matter more so in the Bow Valley than in a normal city, let's say?
I think just with the nature of, a transient population, newcomers to the country, it can be isolating for people. And so when they come here, they don't have that built-in support system. A lot of, people I talk to through my work are feeling homesick. They talk to their family and they feel great after they talk to their family, but then it kind of hits them that they're not here with them. And so it's these little things that everyone's going through, but people are still trying to find their way to try to talk about them openly, because I think we live in this society where we become very insular. We don't want to talk about the hard things. We don't want to talk about the dark things. We're supposed to be these positive, everything is sunshine and rainbows.
Especially in the day of social media, where it's basically people are showing kind of the highlights of their lives. No one's posting. Well, very minimal people show their low moments on social media. Few and far between. We commend those that do, but it's basically like a highlight reel of people's lives.
Yeah, exactly.
And you find yourself sitting there scrolling, comparing yourself, and be like, oh man, seems like these people have it all. Why don't I have that? It's a very kind of mind-bending place to put yourself in, for sure. What's that saying? It's like, comparison is the thief of joy.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, no doubt.
Very true words,
Well, hospitality here too, as well. Like, with it being such a big part of Banff and the community here, what role do you think, like, businesses kind of intentionally or unintentionally, like, worsen or support that? Like, is there something to be said on that?
I mean, I think from an employer's perspective, I think there's always ways to do better. And so that could be facilitating, events that maybe don't center around drinking or that kind of party atmosphere, because a lot of demographics now, they're not really into that as much.
Right.
But it's tough. When you are living and working and playing with all the people that you work with, it's one of those things where there's always something to celebrate. There's always like a going away party. There's always a birthday. There's like, oh my gosh, I'm 20 and a half years old. There's all these things that people want to celebrate. And so also when you move here and you're trying to meet new people, that's the way to do it. You're going out, you're exploring this nightlife, which Banff has a great nightlife, or the Bow Valley has a great nightlife. It's just finding ways to show people that there aren't that isn't just what the Bow Valley is. There's so much more out there. So I don't know if employers or people are intentionally creating that atmosphere. I just think it's natural.
Yeah, it just kind of happens.
Yeah, fair.
Well, especially when you get done a hard day, you're just like, man, we made it. That was wild.
Work hard, play hard mentality.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, how to reset and you do it tomorrow, but that's not always...
I think there's nothing wrong with that in itself. It's letting that get out of control, which tends to happen, right? Like, myself included.
Becomes like the daily routine. You get done work, you go to work, you get done, you get, it's a nice day, let's go hit the patio, and the next thing you know, you're in, you got to work in the morning. It's like, it can get out of hand, like Dan said, pretty quickly. Right?
I like what you mentioned though about having workplaces offer events that aren't centered around drinking, which is kind of cool. Some employers I've worked for usually had like an event that wasn't around drinking, and then brought, then like it's a dinner or something that has afterwards, which is kind of cool. Very good way for employers to kind of promote not drinking, which is kind of nice. Yeah, if you tie your reward system of completing a good day's work to deserving that, I feel like that's kind of where that slippery slope kind of happens. You know what I mean? Like, you give yourself an excuse, give yourself a second excuse. I don't know. That's where I found myself kind of slipping down the dark hole. So
no doubt.
Well, and it's tough too, because when you think about when I stopped drinking, it was a choice I made, and it really changed my friend circle. It really changed. It made me more socially anxious, because everyone has a drink in their hand, and then they're offering you drinks, and now you have to go through this whole story and rigmarole of this is why I'm not drinking. And so you just kind of let people make their own judgment, so you don't really have to talk about it. And that was really tough. It really changed the way I was doing things, I guess. I had to figure out who truer friends were, if that makes sense. Yeah, not just drinking buddies.
Instead of just your drinking buddies,
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You can find out pretty quick when you're not drinking who wants to hang out or not. It's like, you want to just go do a hike or something? It's like, no. Well, can I bring a... It's like, I mean, I guess, but...
I saw this post the other day that said, it's strange, but alcohol is the only that you have to explain why you don't use it.
Yeah, like if you
know what I mean?
Like you quit hard, no one's gonna be like, "Oh, why'd you do that?" And life must suck. Like, how do you get through the day? It's like, everybody's like, "Oh, good for you, good for you." But
it's a very like strange thing that like if you do put alcohol down, that you're gonna have to face that. That you have to like almost defend your decision not to use it, which is a very, it's like you're gonna have to be ready to face that.
Totally.
Which is really funny. But it's the way she goes. What are some of the biggest misconceptions that people might have around mental health and addiction, especially here in the Bow Valley?
Oh, I was really thinking about this today, even. I think one of the biggest things, because again, we live in this beautiful mountain playground where everyone should be getting outside and skiing or biking, running, that I think a lot of people don't understand that when people are in the thick of mental health or addiction challenges, it's not just a snap of the fingers. Just be happy. Just focus on the positive. Look around. Look at, at least we live here, and that it turns into almost, and I know this is a catchphrase trending now, is toxic positivity, but it's real. When someone is down on themselves and they're really in the low times of their life, the last thing that's going to be helpful is someone saying, just look at the positive and think positively, because that's just not where that person is at. And so we have to meet them where they're at.
Again, I think that falls in the trend of like brushing those hard topics under the rug here in Banff and having everyone again think, oh, it's so beautiful, we're all here to party and da da da. It's like, yeah, that might be okay for some people, but not all, you know. And there's might be some people in your group of friends right now, if you're at home listening to this, that may be struggling and not saying anything about it.
Well, we all know someone that's been Banffed, like
Yeah.
Banffed as we call it. You know, you show up, they show up here, and 2 months later they so hard they got fired from 3 different jobs, and you know, and 2 or 3 of the businesses in town own all of the places to work in town. It's, you know, you burn your bridges really quick, and then you know you get into the other stuff, and by the time you know it, you've been here 3 months and you're already going back home to mom and dad's, right? So.
It's not cool.
No, we all know those people. We've known at least 1 or 2 of them since, you know, since you've been here. Like, what have you been here? 16 years now. I've been here just about 13. I know quite a few people that just come in and party hard and have to leave, right? Like,
Fewer is the reverse Banffed. I ran into a homie at the grocery store. Big shout out. I'm not going to name any names, but he got reverse Banffed. So he was Banffed, same kind of thing, having a hard time with the lifestyle, the consuming, all that stuff, but got his life together and now is like looking great, super healthy.
Nice.
And like you can get out of it if you are there, especially in the Bow Valley. Like if you want to get your mind off of those things, like whatever you're into, your mental health, get outside, go move your body. You know, I think that's kind of the biggest thing that helped me was supplementing those times. I used to think when I was in my addictions, like, what do normal people do? They must be bored all the time doing nothing. But it's like, no, they're out, like, you know,
they're doing other stuff,
walking or taking care of their house or like, you know, laundry, keeping a clean home. Like, these are all things that I never did when my addictions or my mental health was suffering, right?
Yeah, fair.
So it's like, oh, that's what normal people do. It's kind of crazy, right? When we talk about breaking the stigma, what does that look like in practice?
I think that fits into exactly what we're talking about. So again, going back, you know, I'll think about when I was in my complete lowest point and I have someone that, you know, I care about standing in front of me saying, you're always a negative and you're thinking, you need to think positively. And in that moment, it's like, can make someone feel more broken than they actually are. And so I think that's where stigma kind of files in, is that, you know, you're just not there. You know, I could barely get out of bed. I went from running marathons to barely getting out of bed, and thinking positively, it was not helpful for me. You know, I think it makes people feel like they're failing at life. And I think that's where a stigma happens, is that people think this is a choice. You know, people are like, you're making the choice to be every night or having an addiction challenge or mental health challenge. People aren't choosing those things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that's just not how depression works. That's not how anxiety works. I think, again, if we could snap our fingers and all be happy, we would. But that's just not how it works. And so I think that's where stigma begins, is that we always look at someone who we may be worried about, you know, maybe their choices are not the most healthy choices, but we're always thinking, well, if they just wanted it harder, or if they could just put their mind to it more, if they wanted it more, like all these things, that they'd just be okay. But there's always that's the surface. There's always things happening under the surface that we don't know about.
100%.
Everybody's fighting their own battles. Like, it's, I think you don't know what that person is exactly going through. Like, especially looking, you know, in from the outside, it's like, that's not easily diagnosed. You're not a psychologist, you know what I mean? Like, you just, you see this person struggling, you don't know exactly what's going on inside their head, right? So
what's the flip side of that, of someone who may be on that quote unquote toxic positivity side of being like, hey, maybe just get over it? How can that person approach these situations in maybe a more compassionate way?
You know, I'll speak from personal experience with what helped for me. And that was, you know, my friends knowing that I'm having a really tough time right now, but still inviting me, knowing that the answer was going to be no. Pretty much 99.9% of the time, I was not going to show up to whatever that was. But knowing that these people are still thinking of me, they still want me there. but they know that I probably won't show up. Another huge thing that a friend did was he would text me, and the start of his text would just say, "Hey, I'm just checking in. No pressure to text me back. No pressure to respond." And that was huge because when I like picked up my phone, I'd just be like, "Oh, this is the," you feel pressure to talk. But that little thing was so helpful to be like, this person's still thinking about me, but they understand that if I'm not responding, I'm not being rude, I'm not being, avoidant. It's just they make you feel like you're cared for still.
Nice. Without the pressure, right? Like,
yes.
Strangely enough, if you're looking to kind of spend time by yourself, you have this crazy little brick next to you that instantly connects you to everyone. There's a lot of pressure there, especially if you're not feeling like being socially responding. Like, I never even thought of it like that, of putting pressure on people in that way of checking in on them. Wild stuff.
Yeah. And people feel more anxious. I felt so anxious. Text would just sit there for days, and then the anxiety gets worse because you're like, oh my gosh, I have not reached out to this person or reached back to this person. But the right people know that it's not them. You're not, wanting to avoid them. It's just you're not in the right space, and the right people will always find you and understand that.
Do you think that feeling kind of gets amplified a little bit, the fact that we're in such a small town or in smaller communities within the Bow Valley?
Definitely. I mean, how many times have we tried to run around, do errands, and then 8 hours later we're like, well, I got nothing done, but I saw every other person I knew, and that's great. And so that's another thing, is that you're trying to navigate wherever you're at, whatever your feelings are in that moment, whatever diagnosis you may have, and then you're running into a whole bunch of people, and that just creates more anxiety.
Right.
Or you see them on the street and you haven't texted them for 5 days, and then you're having to have that face-to-face conversation, and it can be super awkward and uncomfortable.
It could lead to more isolation too. Like, if you're going to go out, you're probably going to bump into someone, and if you're not in the mental state to do it from whatever reason, whether it be you're just not going to leave your house. You know what I mean? Like,
do you think that in a town like Banff, where everybody knows everybody, do you think that fear of, being judged could impact people's ability to, or willingness to reach out for help?
Definitely. I think because the towns and communities can be so small, like Dan was saying, it just creates more isolation for people. So the last thing you want to do when you're heading to your therapy session is to then run into all these people.
Hey, what are you doing?
Who totally unintentionally, they're checking in, they're asking you, what are you up to right now? And that's the last, you don't want to be honest in that moment sometimes. Fair. So it can be really tough. And in a town, I think inherently everyone loves judging people. Everyone loves a good gossip session at some point. When it comes to people's trauma and their challenges, that's a completely different story. And I think people have to start looking inward and realizing, why am I gossiping about this person's worst time of their life right now? Because it's just not helpful. And so that is an issue, I think, when you're walking around town. And as it could be even something simple like asking someone how they are is so hard for people when they're having struggles to answer properly. For me, it was always like, things are good. You kind of fake smile and you go about your day knowing that inside it's awful. So it's tough.
Well, I think we've always, I've had this interaction, I'm sure myself included, where I have my headphones on, my sunglasses on. Especially I do that when I kind of want to do my own thing. I don't want to be bothered.
Wear your headphones to the grocery store. You'll get way more grocery shopping done than talking to people.
No problems at all. But maybe someone has walked past me and said hello, and maybe I haven't noticed. Or it's happened likewise, where I see someone got headphones, sunglasses on, and I'm saying hello.
I've done it to Dan.
They just walk past.
I've done it to Dan multiple times. He's on his bike, and I'm just in my zone, hucking with tunes on. He's like, dude, I was waving at you full tilt this afternoon. You didn't see me. I was like, oh, sorry, man.
But I think it's important to remember that no one really owes you that You know what I mean? Like, if they're having their own day or their own moment or their own struggles, like, no one owes you that conversation or that, like, explanation for what they're doing, right? Like, people are entitled to their own privacy. I feel like that boundary gets a little bit skewed sometimes in Banff when you're living, working, playing with people so closely. Everyone wants to know everyone's business. But it's like, just to remember that it's not to be offensive that they're not responding. It's maybe they just don't have that capacity that day. Or like, you know, I work with people. I talk all day at work and then I talk all day on the show. Sometimes when I'm done my day, I don't want to talk anymore.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not an offense to the person. It's just that it's more of a timing thing. But I think even myself, why did that person ignore me? But it's not about you. It's more about them in that situation. But it's easy to forget that.
Totally.
Right? Like,
look, I did not get contact lenses until like 2 years ago. And so I would just blast past people. They're like yelling. No idea. I have no idea who they are because I'm blind. And so now it's a little bit different. But in that sense, people always thought Cheryl's super standoffish. She, she has this attitude or whatever. She's unapproachable. And I literally cannot see a thing, and I have my headphones on, and people are honking
Just
horns
deaf
and
blind.
yelling.
It's like, I didn't see or hear you, man.
Totally.
Well, I think that comes to breaking the stigma. Is like, it's okay for someone to not want to have a full blown stop and chat. You guys watch what's that show with Larry David? The Stop and Chat. He's like,
oh yeah.
Anyway, like
Arrested
Banff,
Development.
Yes, like Banff is like the town of stop and chats. Like, and again, it could be very mentally taxing. We kind of brought up some of these early signs in our conversation already. Self-isolation, maybe excessive consumption, these types of things. What are some of the early warning signs or some of the other early warning signs that some of your friends out there may be experiencing mental health or addiction troubles?
Well, I think the self-isolation is huge. So especially if someone has normally been very interactive and social, and then they start to pull back a lot, that's a huge sign. And I know that we spoke about that. Another thing I think is that when people start to lose interest in what they were always interested in. So from my personal experience, I love being outside and running and hiking and doing all of these things. And then when I was in the thick of it, I completely lost all of my joy. I had no joy in anything.
And you just couldn't get motivated to do it? You just didn't want to? There was no energy? How does that play out?
There just was no interest. It almost felt like a fog. I have been explaining this like it was a fog. It was taking up too much of my bandwidth to do those things. I would be completely exhausted. And so it was a situation where, all my brain power is, say, going towards my job, and I love my job. And then after that, I just didn't want to do anything because I'd used all that capacity to just get through the day to do that. And so I slowly started to lose that joy in things. And that was something, my close friends really started to see.
For sure. And it's very easy to slip into these negative kind of patterns when you're working shift work as well. So like regular sleep patterns have a huge thing to play with brain chemistry and all this stuff.
Oh yeah.
I forget, Nat, God bless, she sent me this thing, and it was especially for people that work in hospitality. It's like if you go to bed, I think it's like 2 or 3 times a week at a different time or like later than you normally would, you fall under the category of like disruptive sleep or like shift worker sleep.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
And again, like if you're not used to this and you're coming from a place where you maybe had your full sleep, your full support system, and then you're put into a place that's new, your sleep patterns are all changed.
Different schedule every week, maybe work a couple days, couple of nights.
Right? You're incorporating some on top of that and maybe some new situations that are stressful to you. Like it's a very easy situation to kind of overflow or, go that way. What's the best way, if we're noticing this in our communities or in our friend groups, what's the best way to step in without overstepping or like how do we approach that in a way that's constructive, not negative?
I honestly think it starts with having that check-in with them, where they don't feel pressured. Going back to the things that really helped me, I think those things are very helpful for other people because they don't put them on the spot where you're saying to someone, there's no pressure to talk about this, or you're really just checking in and listening, because I think we're so caught up in this world of, we ask someone how they are. They may say, I'm fine. They're not fine, but then you start talking about yourself and you're like, well, all these great things are happening.
Yeah.
I think
it's kind of like a slap in the face almost, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's not intentional. It's not intentional because I think people are just wanting that connection. But I just think there's just better ways to check in and listen and have people feel heard without overstepping, without, handing them a pamphlet of, here are these great meetings that happen every Thursday. Like, that's not going to help someone. And just finding out what's happening, because you can't really help someone else or make a judgment on what's happening until you know. And if that person's not ready to talk about it, they're not ready.
Well, I think there's this, not joke, but we've all heard this in certain groups of friends where it's like, oh, haha, this person's been, they need an intervention, ha ha ha. But it's like, sometimes it's joking, sometimes it's serious.
Yeah.
But if that person doesn't want to talk about it or face it, it could be more detrimental having this intervention or this confrontation piece. It could send them further down or further isolated from their friend group or whatever than what you're actually trying to accomplish.
It's like reverse psychology, right? It's like if you're making fun of someone for struggling, they're just, that could just make it way worse. They're just like, well, people think I'm doing this, I might as well be doing more of it, you know what I mean? So
I think the point is like approaching that on a personal basis rather than like a group of friends versus one person, especially if like the group is engaging in the same behavior and like, no, you're the one that's going overboard.
Like, well, yeah, we were all doing that last night. Like, we were all at the same. Why is it different for me? But could kind of ostracize some people, I guess, at that point.
I think you made such a good point, because people have that mindset where, you think, oh, that person's been a lot, they need an intervention. And then that gets back to that person. And like you said, they just think, well, they think I messed up anyway, so I might as well just continue on this path. And I'm a topic of joking around, and that can really hurt people.
No doubt.
I've had that mentality before of like, man, I'm already this far gone. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, what's another embarrassing moment or another whatever? Like, but it's important to know that you can always get sober, because it's never honestly too late. Like,
I don't
know if you guys, I don't know if you've seen me before. Maybe a little bit. But yeah, I was like, if I could do it, anyone out there could do it. When I first quit drinking, people would look at me and go, you quit drinking? Like, I've been on record
I didn't
saying,
know you back in the day.
I would never. Like, so.
I never with Dan back in the day. But
it was a wild time.
I could imagine.
But the point is like, don't ever lose hope on yourself or on your friends. Like, it's, for people in my life that I know are struggling around me, it's not just a one and done of offering help one time and they're not ready, so that offer's off the table. I think if your friends that are struggling, whether it's mental health or addictions or any combination of those two, if they know that that door is always open, that is where you'll get those moments of vulnerability, because they know that when they are ready, they have someone that's non-judgmental that they can come to.
Exactly.
And like, there's a couple people in my life that I'm thinking about that like, yo, that door's always open, man. So when you're ready, come holler. Like, I had a buddy recently just got out of a program, and like, there's nothing that makes me more stoked than watching a reverse Banff happen.
Totally.
You know what I mean? It's never too late out there, guys.
And I think it stops those conversations too, where, someone says, oh, I haven't had a drink in 2 weeks, to stop, as that person that's getting told that, to stop yourself for a second and think about how you are going to react to that. Because I've had it happen, you know, where it's like, oh, I haven't had a drink for 2 weeks. And then that person's like, well, how long is that going to last? Or how much longer is that going to last? And then now you're putting doubt in that person's mind when they're trying to get to a certain point, or they're, you know, they are in a positive state of mind.
Yeah, that can be monumental for some people. You
Totally.
know what I mean? Like, I haven't had a drink in a week. People, like, that's, for some people, that's like, that's a massive achievement. You know what I mean? Like,
A little tip, if you're in that situation, this happened to me on my second attempt. So my first attempt sobriety obviously did not go well, relapsed, but on my second one, I got some really good advice, and I think it was a former mental health ambassador, Matt Cahallen, that gave me this advice. Big shout out to that guy.
oh, yeah, appreciate it.
He said, don't tell anyone. He said, you know what? Like, if your sobriety is for you, don't tell anyone, because you're just putting more pressure on yourself.
Yeah.
You can avoid the situations of being at the bar. You can avoid the situations of grabbing a drink. You don't have to tell the whole world about it right away. You know what I mean? And it's much easier when you have months instead of weeks to be like, this is what I've accomplished. I'm ready to let people know, and you're comfortable being in that position, versus that 2 week, like, oh yeah, you get chirped, you get whatever. And that was honestly like a huge pivotal moment for me of making it about me and not about others, not about having to prove to others I've been 2 weeks, I've been, 7 days, whatever.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
And, actually, funny thing, I was cleaning up recently and I found my 1 month sobriety coin from AA.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I love it.
It was crazy. It was like lost
That's
in a
awesome.
bunch of stuff. So yeah, I don't know.
And it came out of nowhere because it was like, look how far you've come.
That's it. Maybe I just need a reminder before this episode to, like, stick with it. Be there for your friends, And sometimes keeping that journey personal is what's needed.
Yeah, fair.
Anyways, how important is community connection when we're talking about all of this? Like yourself, you do tons of volunteering. How has that helped you in your own journey? Because I think a lot of people lack in connection these days. It's easier to connect with someone over the phone, or again, check in with someone. Hey, I've checked in, rather than like actually following through and meeting someone for coffee or having that connection.
Community connection is huge. I think when someone's ready to, get out there and start connecting with their circle again, it can be so healing and helpful. And it can be scary. So that's something that, I do want to also say is that when someone's ready, or if they don't even know how to start talking about how they're feeling or what's been going on, taking that first step to reach out can be scary for people. They don't know where to start. But I think the great thing about Banff or Bow Valley Mental Health and Addiction Week is that there are these events for everyone. And so even if you're feeling like you're not ready, there's, online programs that you can connect to, which will be helpful if you don't feel like you're ready to be in front of people or in person. But it's also just a learning experience for everyone. So I don't think I'm answering your question.
No, but I think you drive a very good point that like you don't have to go there and out yourself as, say, someone who's struggling. You can go and participate in the events and still learn and get resources without putting yourself in the spotlight of like, hey, I'm an addict, or hey, I have this mental health problem that I need help with. Like, it's kind of a low barrier to entry and a low consequence entry into that space, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're entering spaces that you're not going to get called out. It's not like in school where they're like, Dan,
tell the class.
Maddie, tell us what the answer was to this question. It's not like that. And so there are these, supportive spaces, and we hope that they're safe spaces for people to share if they're ready or when they're ready. Maybe you meet someone there and that you connect to and you resonate with their story or something that they've said, and that starts that connection. Because I think when people are going through the same things, they're more likely to connect with each other on a different wavelength than someone who doesn't understand what they may have been going through.
Yeah, well put.
I think too that that process is like kind of a slow starting one, right? Like if I think of my personal experience looking back, when I went to my first AA meeting, I didn't share. I just kind of listened, gauged the room, see what it was about. And then the next time I was a little bit more confident in maybe reading a passage or telling a little bit about my personal experience. So sometimes a little action just to get you started gets that ball rolling, and the snowball effect takes in. Next thing you know, you're finding coins years later.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, and people pick up on other people's courage or strength or bravery when they're talking about really dark, hard things, and that even in itself, when someone has a light bulb go off and thinking, wow, that's a really tough thing to share. I can't wait to get to that point. And that gives people hope.
For sure. Yeah. And honestly, talking about it, eventually when you get there, is probably the most healing thing. Like, I love sharing my experience on the pod, and if I can help someone not make the same mistakes or go down the same dark road that I went down, if even it's just one person, like, that's a win. And like, this is meditative what we do, talking about it. And
Definitely.
Like, you talk about connection. This is how I've found mine. I get to meet people. We get to talk about these things that really matter to the people in our communities, right? And there's something really powerful behind that. From your perspective, what's the most meaningful part of being involved with the Bow Valley Mental Health and Addictions Week?
I think from my perspective, what we're just talking about, being able to share parts of my journey and story that I'm ready to share right now, I think it's just so therapeutic for people, not in a clinical way. These are real things that happen to real people, and you know, there are ways to get to a point where you're coming out of the fog and you're feeling a lot better. I think, you know, it isn't just like I have kind of mentioned with supports, it's not a one size fits all. You know, we think about the Bow Valley, it's this beautiful place, but there are dark things that happen here. It's the same thing with our list of resources. We have some fantastic resources. And a huge thing for me to be part of this week is telling people that it's not a cookie cutter, you know, process. You could find a support service that really didn't work for you, and then you can find 20 other people that will stand up and say that service was awesome for me. But it's focusing on trying to get people the supports that they need when they're ready, and the supports that fit correctly. And so that's where I am right now with just making
part of your bio, the ambassador, right? Are you comfortable kind of diving into that story? Because I mean, that's got to be a unique position in itself, where you're reaching out for help, and then the help that you're getting through the resource isn't maybe tailored for you. How does that how did that look like in your situation?
You know, I'll start it off saying that really for people to even take that first step to want to find that help or support is huge. So that in itself is massive for people and for myself. You know, I had been referred to a service great service in town. And I did reach out, super supportive, and then it just really was not an experience for me that worked well. Unfortunately, you know, I left after that hour feeling worse than I did going in, which is not the intention of any support service that we have. But that was my experience. And I will say, in the past, I've had a great experience with the same provider. This experience was just a lot different. And
I think it's important to talk about that, because this does happen, you know? Hopefully it's not the trend, but these instances do happen for sure. And again, to not brush that under the rug, to stand up for yourself when you're in these moments of need is not the easiest thing to do.
Definitely. And I think it's hard because then, you know, for me, I had to go back to this close circle of mine that had partly referred me to this service and have to go back and say, that was really bad. It traumatized me more. It traumatized me more than, and then those people they feel sad because that's not the experience people want to have. But having said that, I think even in that moment, in this really horrible moment of being like, wow, I guess I'm not deserving of this help. Like, I don't know. Because it put so much doubt in it put a lot of doubt on me. But I always knew that when I had enough ground underneath me, I was going to give that feedback to them, which is huge. I think that in itself is scary.
Yeah, how are you?
But it needs to.
How was the response to giving that feedback?
The response was amazing. I think, the validation I received at that time after giving that feedback was kind of the validation I needed a year ago, and it unfortunately didn't roll out that way, but it gave me hope that they'll use that feedback as a tool to empower themselves to just do better and support people better in the future.
Nice.
Because I was very clear that I didn't want that to happen to someone else. And in a town here where it could be so easy for people to just give up, you don't know. Someone could be, for myself, I'm hanging on by a thread here. This happens. For a lot of people, they could get pushed to a different side of that. They may not have the support system I've luckily had. And so I hope that people and service providers can understand to just lead with more empathy in those situations.
For sure. What a tough situation to navigate. That must have been a nightmare. I'm sorry I had to go through that.
Yeah, it was, again, like I said, I think I'm lucky that I had the support system I had, and that was the thing, is I didn't give up on myself. And I was able to find some really great resources in the Bow Valley that were super helpful. And I think that's hard for people. And so I'm kind of here to say, you're not alone in it, and it's okay to shop around in a way, right? To bring levity to this conversation.
Well, I think it's to not stop trying. That if the first meeting, first contact with support doesn't help, or doesn't go the way you think it's going to go, or doesn't go the way you expect it to go, to keep trying. That other resources are there, and it's not a one size fits all. I've been guilty of saying that, just get outside, yeah, it's it's not that. There's definitely more to it. But the first step is reaching out. That's, I think, the most important thing.
Well, for someone listening right now, or someone watching, what's the easiest first step they can take to get involved this week?
I think heading to the schedule of events is a huge place to start. So that, that's low pressure. You just
where can they
type it in. And so that's BVMHWA.ca. So that's Bow Valley Mental Health and Addiction Week. And so our whole schedule of events is on there. You're able to see what's being provided, and something that might resonate with you, or maybe someone who might be going through grief and you want to better support them. Though that's a great place to start, is to just even look at the schedule, see what we do, take a look at the ambassadors. Maybe someone really resonates with you, you can relate to their story and you want to reach out to them. That's what we're all here for. And then just attending, I think, I know it can be hard, but, and if you're not there, if someone's not ready and they're not ready to take that step and be out there like that, then, reach out to someone that's close to you and have a conversation, have a real conversation. I think we always sit on these surface conversations, and it's okay to talk about how you're really feeling. It's okay to not be fine.
For sure. I think that's the big thing too, is it's okay to be there, right? Toxic positivity.
Oh my gosh, I didn't mean to make that such a thing.
No, it's great. I love it. Beyond awareness, what kind of long-term change are you hoping that weeks like this can create?
Oh my gosh. I mean, even having this conversation with you two right now is huge. And I think that's the step that we need to take. Break down these barriers, break down these stigmas that, that person over there is usually so strong. I can't believe this is happening. And just embrace that is where that person is at. Mm-hmm. And I think weeks like this and events like this are just helpful for people to understand that they aren't going through it alone, that they can honor themselves and they can be gentle and kind to themselves. And I think that helps. Like, it makes such an impact and a lasting change, as little as it might sound. It's huge. And there's always people that are willing to have those conversations or advocate for you, and you don't have to do it alone.
Very well said.
No doubt.
Very well said. Give us a follow. We've been sharing all the events as well for Bow Valley Mental Health and Addictions Week. They have an Instagram page as well. I think it's Bow Valley Mental Health Week.
Bow Valley Mental Health Week, yes.
Bow Valley Mental Health Week. So if you want to find out more, you want to follow along with the events that are going on, go check them out. We're about halfway through the week. There's plenty more events, and check out our story. We've been sharing those as well. Any final points you want to make? Anyone you want to shout out, or?
They know who they are.
They know who they are. Just a little final point. If you are kind of in crisis mode and you are going through mental health or addiction issues, you can always go to the Mineral Springs Hospital. They have qualified staff on 24 hours a day. I've been there myself. They took great care of me, and look where I am today. So if you're looking to get your ball rolling, that's a very low barrier to entry. It's just you and a counselor, so you're not exposing yourself to a group or anything like that.
Yep.
They will definitely ensure that you are on the right track, if you want to be, Mm-hmm. And if you're having a good time on the other side, that door will be there when you're ready, Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us, Cheryl. This has been real great. You didn't even use your notes.
I didn't use my notes.
Not needed.
Well, I'll hear about it later. I'll hear about it
you did great.
I'm not using my
For someone
notes.
who's nervous, you did a great job. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. Big thank you to our second sponsor, Defending Awesome. If you need anything print-wise, they're more than just a merch shop. They do stickers, They do custom work. Even if you're a DJ and you want a poster design for your next event, or you're a community-based group and you're having a barbecue, go check them out. Stop into the shop. They're a great hang. They're a great chat. They're always super stoked to see you. And talk about community, big part of it. So they're always having a good time in there. If you want some of our merch, we never ask anyone for money, especially our viewers. So if you want to support the pod, go on our website, overheardpodbanff.com. You can get yourself some cool merch, support the show, and have a cool hat for your dome. So,
no doubt.
Yeah.
Cool hat for your dome.
Cool hat for your dome.
Kind of like this.
Yeah.
Or like that.
Kind of like that. Yeah. Or like the white one if you like that one. But yeah, reach out on Instagram if you want local delivery. If not, we'll ship it anywhere you are in the world. So check us out. That's all the time we got.
Heck yeah.
Thanks again. Like every week.
We'll see you next Tuesday.
Peace.